In this lesson, we're going to cover the skill of framing. Framing is when words that we use trigger images, emotions, and/or thoughts into our audience's minds. Usually, the framing is used around facts to convey the idea or emotion the speaker wants the audience members to think and feel. Let's do a test. At this very moment, I want you to close your eyes. Think about anything you want. Absolutely anything in the world. You don't have to say it out loud. Just think about it. Now, while you're thinking about whatever it is you're thinking, whatever you do, don't think about an elephant. Okay? No elephants. Nothing related to an elephant. You can't think about an elephant. Now let me ask you. Were you thinking about elephants before I told you not to think about them? And did you start to think anything about an elephant after I told you not to? Most likely the answer is, at least for a split second, an elephant popped in your head. You weren't thinking about elephants until I mentioned the word elephant. But you didn't follow the instructions. I told you not to think about them. But most likely, you thought about them anyway. That's how framing works. So when I say words or images, and I make you think that as well. You could see this too in the example of when Nixon was being questioned. Was he famous for saying, "I am not a crook"? Well, what happened when he said that? Even if no one was thinking he was a crook, as soon as he said those words, everyone thought, oh, Nixon's crooked. That's how framing works. When you use words, you give thoughts and ideas to your audience members. The importance of framing. If you want to move people to think, feel, understand, or do something differently, the starting point has to be the frame. Okay? Understanding our audience means more than just understanding their demographics or their immediate concerns. It requires understanding that the frame matters to them. Okay? We'll see some examples later on in this lesson. Using framing. We can use facts and figures and numbers all day long, but until we put a frame with those numbers, they don't mean anything. If we just throw facts out, we're losing our power as speakers, because then we give the audience members the power to determine what that number means. Framing should always be used prior to the facts. This is how you want to set the facts up, the way you want the audience members to hear them. So I just covered this. How when Nixon was underneath all the pressure from the press to resign because of the Watergate scandal, he stood before the nation and he said, "I am not a crook." And everyone thought he was a crook. Had he said something along the lines of, "I am an innocent man," then people would have thought, oh, perhaps he's innocent. No one would have gotten, oh no, he's a crook, if he had said that he was an innocent man. That's why your words are so powerful. Let's read another example. I want you to reread that last part of the slide. If we speak only facts, the audience either will not pay attention to those facts, or they will provide their own context to make sense of those facts. Let's do an example together. If I said 13% of patients experience this side effect, I'm leaving the audience members to interpret what that 13% actually means. Now, if I put a frame to it, the first example, only 13% of patients experience this side effect. What do you think about the 13%? That it's a small number. Very few people are going to have a side effect to it. Next one. Fully 13% of patients experience this side effect. %13 sounds a lot bigger now, doesn't it? But it's still the same number. If I had two drugs sitting in front of you right now, and I said drug A, only 13% of patients had side effects. Or drug B, fully 13% of patients experience side effects. Which one would you take? You'd most likely want to reach for drug A because it only has 13%. Even though the numbers are the same, the way that it's worded makes the second one sound like a lot more people are affected. Let's look at the third one. As many as 13%. And the last one, even though 13%. You see how putting that frame in front of that 13% can change the meaning of the facts? So what's our lesson about framing? You need to frame first, then give the facts. Because when you put the frame to the facts, you make sure that your audience members get the same idea and agree with you. Unfortunately, we don't have much time in this course to study framing in its entirety. So if you would like to do some outside reading or continued reading after the course, here's an outside book that you can get. I found it on Amazon. Again, if you're a Prime member, you should be able to rent it for free. I was able to purchase the book for free. I'm not sure how much it is now. But don't think of an elephant. Know your values and how to frame the debates. And another popular book about framing is The Art of Framing, Managing the Language of Leadership, which I've had many supervisors that have taken my course tell me that this book was really worth the read. And that's going to conclude our lesson on framing.